Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again to the Tournament of Glory Grand Finals here for the European region. My name is Blue, joined today by Grouch. We're heading into our second and final semifinal of the day, which is going to be between Maiden Meta and the Civilized Gentlemen. There is quite a lot of reputation behind both of these teams, I have to say. MiM's is a little bit more in the past, whereas TCG's a little bit more in the more recent times, specifically in the past year, is where kind of their team comes into play. But I mean, so Grouch, I think you're pretty good on both these teams, right? So tell us a little bit about them.
So Maiden May has been around since essentially the inception of anything competitive in Guild Wars 2. They've been around since Masters of the Mist, I believe, which actually is the first tournament that they ever won, which took place in May of 2013.
Yeah,
I think
that was like over a year ago.
Yeah, so like it was like one of the first major tournaments in Guild Wars 2, right? And these guys were a very great team back then, and a lot of still core members here, obviously operating under the same name here. So I expect a lot out of them. Kind of the old guard versus the relatively new guard. I know we say that TCG is kind of like a newer team, but I mean even those guys have been around since I think the MLG Invitational was September of last year. And
yeah.
Didn't these guys take that?
They took first place in that. Yeah, they were still under the name Denial Esports at the time, but that was I think it was about like 3 to 4 out of 5 of the roster that I currently have now is who participated in that one. So
yeah, so both teams are very strong, just at different points in time in the game, right? TCG is much more well known now. I mean, the entire roster got voted in for the All-Stars tournament at Gamescom, and looking forward to seeing this game, seeing how maybe MIM's adapted to the meta since they come back, rather, and just kind of seeing what they can do against TCG, who's like well known to be the one of the strongest teams in the EU, if not the strongest.
Alright guys, so once again, we're going to take a look at the builds here in just a few minutes. Just want to toss out a bit of a reminder and congratulations to the person who won our second precursor. That was Dash612, which means the guys in the chat can stop the hashtag spam right about now, unless you want to spam as Twitch chats usually do. But of course, Dash612, just go ahead and check your private messages. You should have a message from me personally. My username is Blue42. You may have to check your other inbox if you're not following me personally, but just go ahead and check that, and there should be more details on how you can go ahead and claim that precursor. But of course, back into the action, folks. We're going to head over to the builds camera now. We're actually still waiting for a few members of TCG to join this sides here, but I think they should be on in just a second. So let's head over to our builds camera, Grouch, and check out what each team is running under the hood. Let's take a look first at Maiden Meta. Let's take a look.
All right, so looking at Maiden Meta here, it's going to be, I guess we'll start with the Zani here. So Zani's going to be running a Shattered Mesmer. I'll just be like kind of high level with these builds here, just kind of giving the overall placement in their team, like what kind of role they'll fill. So he's going to be running a Staff Greatsword Shattered Mesmer, meaning he's going to do a lot of damage, really focused on doing range damage, right? Going to be throwing out his clones as much as possible and just getting long range shatters off. Just trying to really just a lot of bursts coming out from this guy, right? He's just going to be really a kind of a threat, especially to Sizer, right? Because Sizer's probably going to be the main target here for Zani.
Moving over to Taya, of course, he's going to be playing another Dagger Elementals. We've already seen 2 of them play today. Both, of course, are played in the same game by the same team over there on Boone. But as we take a look once again, it's going to be the 00266 split. Lots of support. It's a very hybridized build, I have to say. There's a lot of support that can come into this build, but there's also a lot of damage potential too that comes in from this build. Very good on the side note for supporting himself through water attunement abilities, but it can also keep some of the squishier members of his team alive, such as Levin and Onath, who we'll go over in just a second. If they end up getting into a pinch and need Condi cleanses or heals in general, he can also offer those. But also, as the team fight progresses, because he's running with the Rune of Strength here, somewhat similar to, I would say, like if you watch any MOBA games like League or Dota, it's going to be similar to sort of a smaller version of a carry, basically, where the longer he's in that team fight, the more he's keeping himself alive, he's going to get more and more might stacks, which only makes him more and more powerful as that team fight continues on, and he's just, in general, going to become more and more of a threat. The longer the fight goes on, the longer he's kept in that fight and alive, too. Perhaps take a look at Levin.
All right, so taking a look at Levin here, he's going to be running a Dagger Pistol Thief build. So really, again, his focus in the team fight is going to be coming in, doing a lot of burst damage, taking targets down, and just trying to get out. He's going to be really squishy. If he stays in the fight too long, he's going to get taken out. He doesn't have the same kind of team fight ability that like a Sword Dagger Thief would, because they can kind of go in, use a lot of evades, kind of skirt around a lot of the damage. This guy is really about getting in, doing the damage, and getting out before he gets taken out by any AoE or cleave.
And then taking a look at Onath over here once again, who is going to be playing a Spirit Ranger. Spirit Rangers have somewhat fallen out of popularity in recent months here. Not 100% sure on if the Greatsword is a serious choice here. We'll have to see. It might be, but I'm very doubtful. More than likely, I think we may see this swapped over to either an Axe Torch combo or a short bow, but we'll have to wait and see, as there have been some very different Ranger builds being brought into tournaments in recent weeks here, so I don't want to judge it just yet. But besides that Greatsword, though, it's going to be your standard Spirit Ranger. lots of support will come into play here. Lots of AoE comedies and boons, specifically protection, will be coming out from this guy. And of course, he's also going to have that Spirit of Nature, which is really good for kind of rescuing team fights. If things are not going so well, he can bring that out and give passive regeneration. I believe at this point it's going to be, what's it doing right now? 320 heals per second to everyone around within the radius of it. And as well, if teammates end up going down, he can resurrect them with its active ability. Take a look at Sam Grouch.
All right, so taking a look at Sam here, he's going to be running a Mace Focus Scepter Shield build, which is, so he's going to be going for something a little bit different than the normal altruistic healing build where you use something traditional like a staff. His build here is going to be 00266. He's picking up Indomitable Courage, and what this is going to give him is the ability to apply a bit extra stability to himself and his allies. Normally, a Guardian would only take Stand Your Ground, which would give about 8 seconds of stability, or pardon me, 6.5 seconds of stability to any nearby allies. This will allow him to give a little bit of additional anytime he pops his Virtue of Courage. So it's great if like, you get into a team fight, a lot of times you'll pop out stability, get the initial stomp off, whatever you need that initial stability for. This will allow him to go in for a second clutch play, whether it's a rezzing or a stomp, later on into a fight.
Now moving over to the blue team here on the Civilized Gentleman. Sizer is going to be the thief for this team, running with 20066. It's going to be sword dagger build. Still sticking with that build. Again, kind of the opposite of what Grouch talked about earlier on Levin, where it's more about kind of a big burst in a few seconds. It's the kind of the exact opposite here with the sword dagger thief. It's more about much more applying that damage in a much smaller period or a much longer period of time, much more sustained damage coming into play with this build. But he also has a lot more, I would say, survivability because the dodge up times in this build are a lot higher. He has a lot more initiative available to himself, things such as that. I just got to keep him in the actual kind of brunt of the fight for a lot longer than Levin would ever be able to. But of course, the sacrifice being made from that is the fact that he's not going to have a large amount of spike damage. It's going to be much slower and applied over a much longer period of time is going to need to be taken for him to actually win fights. Take a look at Helseth, Grouch.
All right, so Helseth's running the exact same mirror build as Azani. So again, doing damage from range, really just unexpected burst, just really great damage potential, and he pairs really well with Sizer. These guys work together so well. They're always in sync, and I just expect them to do they're going to put the hurt onto, I would say, mostly Levin. Mostly Levin's going to be the target here because he doesn't have the evades that Sizer does. When Sizer gets caught out, he can use a lot of evades to try to avoid a big burst damage, focus anyways. But Levin's not going to have that. He won't have that at all. If he gets caught out, if he's out of any of his utility skills, he's pretty much done.
All right, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Denshi over here on the Elementalist, again, same exact build as Tay over there, so another Dagger Elementalist. Again, as we talked about earlier, kind of a hybridized build, lots of support being brought into play, as well as damage, and like I said earlier as well, the more he stays in that fight, and the longer the team fight goes onwards, he's just going to get more and more damage, become more and more dangerous of a target. So let's take a look now, and this is where things get somewhat interesting, as Rom, previous to this point, had almost always been playing Warrior, but he's now on Ranger, Grouch, so what's he doing here?
We've seen Rom using Ranger a bit more recently. Again, like you said, he's been famous for playing Warrior in various versions of that. This is a little bit outside of his comfort zone, I think, so I'm kind of curious what they're doing here with this. And, they might not be taking TCG as seriously. I'm not sure what's going on here. This is just something out of ordinary for him. Again, running a Skirmishing, Wilderness Survival, and Nature Magic build, which is focused on using survival skills for Condition Cleanse and using just... it's just conditions, right? Like he's using Rabbit Amulet.
It's I would say 1v1 build, but it's more like, it's basically like a 1v1 / side node / skirmisher build. It's a very undefined sort of territory as far as builds go. It doesn't really attach itself to any of the cliched rules, but for the most part, I mean, it's Condi. That's if we had to peg it to anything, that's what its main purpose is. But
I don't see a lot of team fight potential coming out of this. I mean, he's going to have Entangling Roots, right? Which is great. You go into a fight and you can root everyone, and they've got to actually deal with the thing that spawns on them, right? You've actually got to cleave that damage out, or it's going to keep applying Immobilize to you, which can be great for catching people off guard. But I mean, other than that, I think he would be a much stronger team fighter if he was playing as Warrior. But he could be playing back point. He could be playing far point. It's really just going to come down to their strategy and how they actually utilize him.
I think personally, you were talking about earlier about like kind of why they're bringing Rom in. I think this is a test. I had been speaking with some of their members a few weeks ago, and they were talking to me and how they think that, or how some of their members rather think that Ranger is a really unexplored territory at the moment. And I kind of have to agree with that. There was a lot of interesting changes made to Ranger in the recent patch, and there hasn't been many teams really experimenting with it. There hasn't been many teams kind of playing with the new Ranger changes too much. So I think that's
it's absolutely true. And I mean, the thing that people are focusing on right now is they're looking at the Power Ranger builds, because they're just like they're zeroing in on that and thinking that if you're going to run a Ranger right now, you need to run that Berserker build with a longbow. But everyone's kind of just glossing over the potential for Condition Ranger.
Yeah. So we'll see just how well that test ends up going here today. And then last but not least is going to be Tage over here, who is playing on, once again, another Bunker Guardian. He's still running pretty much the same exact build as Sam. I think the only difference will be the fact that he's chosen to use a staff instead of a scepter shield combination. He's still actually running with the shield, so he's got somewhat interesting weapons, as he does run with that offhand shield. Normally we see mace offhand being utilized, but Tage has a personal preference, really does end up running with shield more often than focus, so bit of interesting change up there. But other than that, again, same exact build as Sam, lots of team fight support, and of course still also going to be running with that indomitable courage in order to get just a little bit of extra stability into that team fight. But of course, that finally now wraps up the build, so we can get started, guys, with this set and see which team will be moving on to the grand finals and which team is going to end up going to the third place match, Maiden Meta or the Civilized Gentlemen. We've just given our teams the signal to ready up, so as soon as they are good to go, guys, we shall now get started with this first game. Still best of 3 set, first team to 2 points. Same map rotation as the previous set as well, starting off over here on Temple, then proceeding over to Forest, and if a third game is required, it'll be performed, I believe, on Kylo. So once again, we'll have to see how things go here.
You know, it's a rare treat seeing TCG play. They don't often come out in full force. They usually run with maybe 3 or 4 of their roster, you know, always giving themselves that little bit of safety net in case they do occasionally lose. But today, it's all on the line. If these guys, you know, they want to defend their legacy, right? Like, they haven't lost a game in the tournament in recent memory, and I can't remember how long. You know, I'm not counting Team Arena or anything like that. I'm just counting, like, these actual structured tournaments that we're doing right now. I can't remember last time they actually lost a matchup.
Yeah, it's been a it's been a very long time. And in fact, I like you said, I can't honestly remember a time where we actually saw TCG getting knocked out early. Maybe over a year ago in that summer. Technically speaking, that's not the same roster as it was now, but this roster has yet to be beaten, and we'll have to see today if that remains true, as they're looking definitely as one of the stronger teams coming in today. I believe with the 3rd seed, actually, due to their issues with TOL2, that did kind of lower their seeding coming into this one a little bit, but of course, already working their way through that now, and primed to once again get themselves into the grand finals as they take on Maiden Meta for that final spot. But let's take a look here, guys. Once again, game finally now getting started, 10 seconds away from the gates opening up. Maiden Meta versus the Civilized Gentlemen, round 1 out of a possible 3 here on the Temple of the Silent Storm. So as the gates open up, let's open up our own maps, and Grouch, check out the splits.
All right, so coming out of the gate here, we do see a lot of players gravitating towards the mid fight here. We do see 1 player from each team, of course, going home to capture. I think looking over here from, let's see, look at Azani's standpoint here. They're going to go with that stealth play, maybe going for that instant burst damage onto Tage. Absolutely just dominating Tage at the midpoint here. A rare occurrence, seeing Tage actually getting taken down. No res is coming in from him. He's actually getting cleaved out within the first 20 seconds of the game. That's impressive.
That is a rare sight, to be completely honest there. Tage is probably one of the best Bunker Guardians in the game. Very rarely do we see him getting bursted out like that. Very well played there on an opener by Maiden Meta, and as well, that's going to give them a huge uppage, as I don't think they're ready for that sort of situation here. They think they're going to come into this game, and they think that they're just going to wipe out middle. Now they've got to kind of bring up a secondary strategy, which very rarely do we actually see TCG have to utilize here. So this is a new situation for them, and we're going to have to see how they adapt to this.
All right, so the mid fight here is still going on right now. We got Azani kind of getting a little bit of a damage right now. Oh, he's kind of getting close to Helseth here. Helseth might be turning around, putting a little bit of burst damage onto him. Actually, it looks like he's going to avoid it for right now.
Oh, Nate,
you see a couple of players from MiM maybe getting around, kind of getting in a good position to get a little bit of burst off on a player. Sam getting very low on midpoint. Here's actually going to be a little bit of danger right now if they don't get some support on for him right now.
Onaith was also knocked out there recently too, so they are still missing that big support that be coming in from the Spirit Ranger. He also used his Spirit of Nature, so another very large cooldown. I believe 3 to 4 minutes there is going to be wasted basically, as he didn't really get any benefit from that whatsoever. And that's, again, and even though we actually ended up seeing Tage get knocked out on middle there first, we've seen a resounding turnaround from the side of TCG, and they should actually be able to take control of this now. They still got to knock out Onaith on the respawn here, but with their Bunker Guardian going down and with kind of minimal members of Maiden Meta being available at this point, they should be able to take it back here for the next few seconds. However, as we take a look at the minimap there, we do have a couple more reinforcements on their way from Maiden Meta. They need to get here quickly though, as Onaith can't survive forever, but if they can get them there, they might just be able to rejuvenate that team fight.
Yeah, we saw Levin actually went to try to check on Altered. Then she forced to go back there and contend with him. Levin coming back into that team fight now. Onaith actually getting taken out on point here. Tage's going to get the stomp off. So even though Levin was able to come in and support them, Levin not able to quite do as much as he needed to, and MiM actually losing that mid fight right now.
And as we see here, once again, we're going to have to see how TCG moves onwards from that. We do have Sizer up on the top here too, as Zani was trying to get some sneaky damage in from up top, but Sizer's going to come up and say nope to that and knock him down there. Not going to chase him, however, and again, because he does pick off on the fact, good numbers call out still on the side of TCG here. They do pick up on the fact that there's no one currently defending that home node there. Unfortunately for Sizer, however, he does run across Onaith's vision path, and while he will still be able to get the decap here, he's not going to be able to steal a free node, as while Onaith might have gone to reinforce middle, that plan is not going to change drastically with him spotting Sizer. And just in general here, Onaith should, at the very least, be able to keep a fairly long fight going. It's just going to start him out here at a little bit of disadvantage because he had to bring those clones out, but we'll have to see just how far this 1v1 goes.
over on the midpoint. We did see Helseth getting taken out. Great work by his team, though, coming in and getting a 3-man res onto him, so they're actually able to cleave him through all of that damage. Now we've got Sizer and Helseth moving in over on the temple side here. We do have Onath on point currently. Probably going to get, I'm going to assume, going to get destroyed here by this double burst combo coming in from the Mesmer and Thief. There goes the Moa onto Onath. Damage coming out right now. Actually doing a pretty good job staying alive so far, to be honest.
He had good fleet timing there. He was able to dodge with an immobilize there. He actually dodged out of pretty much the entire shatter that Helseth tried to get onto him, and that pretty much allowed him to survive that. That was a really good timing there by Onath, and that's pretty much allowed him to survive and may allow his team to turn this fight around. But of course, with them being enclosed into their home node, this is still giving TCG a lot of freedom, and we'll have to see just how Meta reacts to this. As for the time being, in terms of their position on the map, they're at a pretty serious disadvantage.
All right, Helseth's still over here at the temple side. He's actually in a pretty good position to get a decap here. He's kind of skirmishing right now with Taya.
And as we take a look
kind of
here,
just playing the ledge. He's gonna like, he knows Taya can't do damage from the bottom, right? So he's just kind of playing the terrain advantage here, get a little damage onto him, then probably move in once he actually gets Taya down. Actually looks like he knows he's wasting some time here. Sides are coming in. Helseth maybe going for that double combo.
Just to note too, as a bit of a side thing, is we actually did see a bit of a screw up on callouts there from the side of TCG. I think Tage called out that he was a little bit closer to the buff than he actually thought, and that actually gave MiM the buff for free. Their Guardian was able to get the channel off there, use the focus in order to get the guaranteed channel off, and they now have that double cap, that 4 cap here now too, compared to the 0 capture points that TCG currently controls. This is going to allow MiM to pretty much get back into this game, pending the results of that 1v1, but obviously it'll get brought down slightly as Sizer win the 1v1, but still in the grand scheme of things, for the time being at least, Meta is still going to hold the lead with 2 caps to only a maximum of 1 cap here being held by the blue team, as there's still a large amount of contention also going back over here at the middle point too.
Yeah, definitely a good turning point for them. I mean, they were trailing by a good amount of points now. Now they're only behind by about 20 points. They still have a cap point, and Sizer actually capping temple here now, so the focus of the fight's going to go back towards mid here. We have Levin currently on the midpoint here with Sam. Levin kind of in a rough spot right now. He's fighting Tage Helseth. It's just, he's getting trained down.
And Sizer now too. As Sizer jumps into that fight, as he reinforced it coming over there from the temple node. That is quite a bit of extra burst added into play, and unfortunately, as he was really not added in up until that point, Levin didn't really have any foreknowledge of him coming into play there. Granted, again, with him knocking out his opponent, they might have been able to call that out coming in, but because they did not, that was a pretty easy take there for Sizer onto Levin.
All right, so the fight is kind of building here now. We do have Helseth still in here. He's pretty low. Onath actually going to be the focus target now, coming out from TCG. Sizer on him right now. He's going to get taken down here in just one moment. Sam getting in position to hopefully get that res off if he does go down. Oh, actually, he got the res off on his own from from Spirit Res.
So he's now back up and in play. Keep in mind that Spirit is probably going to get bursted down now, and that's actually quite a large amount of passive regeneration that keeps MiM rolling. The second that has been eliminated there, the fight could instantly turn itself back around against MiM, but at least in the current spec of things, in the current spec of time here, TCG is actually, I would have to say, losing this team fight here. Rom is starting to take quite a large amount of damage, but on the reverse side of things, there was a nice burst spike that went off there just a few seconds ago over onto Onath, and Sam is also now under some pressure too, so for a second time now, things are going to flip, and we will end up seeing TCG kind of on, at least for the time being, the winning end of this team fight.
Rom's getting low. Rom might be the first one to go down here. So he just needs one more. Just tap him. There we go. Make sure he gets taken down. Sam coming in for that stop. He's super low though. Cleave damage might be the interrupt here.
Good water field.
Shadow Rippers coming down. They're actually going to get Rom back up in the fight here.
That was a good water field that came out there too on the side of the red team. They actually kept Sam alive just through popping him off their heels. They knew he was going to be under a large amount of pressure there, so their Ranger as well as their Thief comboed that out, and they were able to get they were able to pop off. They were able to pop off in the water field. There's some heals for Sam, so he could try to get that stomp off. Unfortunately though, the res pressure that was coming off from TCG was just a little bit too much, and they weren't really able to execute that stomp at the end of the day.
All right, so Sam finally getting taken down here. As a note, though, the only team that's actually been generating points rather for the past couple seconds actually has been MiM. So they're only 5 points behind right now. Finally getting Sam stomped out on mid, so it's going to be Taya versus Helseth on midpoint. Taya coming into this fight in pretty big advantage. Oh, actually, Helseth going for the Moa on the Taya, not able to quite land the burst here. So that's he's just going to line of sight and try to get let Helseth cap that point there.
I think that was a bit of a wasted Moa, to be completely honest, there on the side of Helseth. He might have done that just to try and get the cap a little bit more in his control, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he had the dodge ready to go, and I really didn't think Helseth had the proper amount of CC without a teammate available to him there. I think that, to be completely honest, that was a bit of a wasted cooldown, but we'll have to see just how well that affects things, as regardless, now the 830 buffs also spawned about 30 seconds ago, and we also now have the chaos of that in play here too. Down at the bottom, we do have Rom winning the 1v1 between Onath and himself, but at the same time, Taya is now going to come down, attempt to support, actually does get the interrupt here. Kind of some rough vertical terrain here, and this actually should allow Tay to get Onath back up, and indeed he shall. So this is not going to turn things against TCG, as they'll have a 2v1 against Rom as they go for control of that bottom. But the top buff, however, also was channeled. Not 100% sure on who actually ended up getting that channel, but considering nobody currently has a cap, that's not going to matter regardless. However, back over here on the actual temple, or back on the gate node here, we actually did see Sam, I'm assuming with assistance from someone else, but I'm not 100% sure, ended up killing out Helseth there, and that is going to allow the red team to take the cap. And if there is any juice left on this buff, oh, but Denchi will deny the cap. Very well done by Denchi. I think red team might have been able to get some points off, but considering the cap was denied there for a few seconds, might have just ended up wasting the last few seconds of it. We'll have to see though, as they'll still have a few more ticks.
Yeah, they got the tick now, so they have the buff still, so they're gonna get a little bit of points. And they're only 20 points ahead right now, but they're actually looking pretty good. Like, this is the roughest position I've seen TCG in a long time.
Indeed, they're struggling to say at least at the moment here. Things are not going so well for them, so we're gonna have to see if they can swing that back around and try to take this lead back. But of course, as a few updates as to what's happening on the points at the moment, we do have Denchi going up in a 1v1 against Taya there. Back over here on the altar too, we have 11 is gonna be taking another free cap here. It's gonna bring his team up to a natural 2 cap compared to the 2 cap TCG had just a few moments ago. Size, however, again popping in out of nowhere, is gonna dive over onto 11. 11 quick to deny some more of that burst though, however, and as well we are gonna see Sizer falling back slightly, but this 1v1 will be pretty crucial, to be completely honest, because this is gonna define who takes the lead for the next few moments here. Helseth, I think, is gonna miss that decap back over there at the temple, so that'll be a 1v1 that'll be going on for quite a large amount of time there. And in general, the blue team Guardian shouldn't really have too much trouble keeping things decapped there. So what it really comes down to is the results of this 1v1, because the other 2 points, at least for the time being, are held statically. And with this other support coming in on the side of TCG from Rom, that may just be enough to push it into their favor.
So the fight to watch right now is Levin versus Sizer over here on the side point. Rom actually rotating in. Levin was doing work against Sizer. Sizer actually had to bail off the point here. He's going to leave him now to fight Rom.
And as we take a look here, Rom, of course, having just a little bit more survivability into this fight, but still does have to try and set something up. Otherwise, he's not going to be too lucky in trying to 1v1 11. And 11 seems to have the advantage, at least so far, against him, too. He does have to be a little bit careful of things like the Fear you just saw there. There's also that 60-second cooldown Entangle now, which could end up being some trouble as well. So he's going to be very careful with when he chooses to dive in, and pretty much has to have, he really has to have a dodge ready for that. Otherwise, that's going to be a very bad situation for him. And unfortunately, he doesn't really have it ready to go there. And that's going to connect a large amount of condies at 11, and that will win Rom the duel there. Very well timed Entangle there by Rom. That's pretty much guaranteed him the 1v1. No other support coming in from the red team, so this is going to give the blue team now their consistent 2 cap, and this should hopefully, assuming they don't get tripped up by the buffs here, to take the lead once again.
All right, so at the bottom buff here, Helseth going for that cap. They're not quite able to get it off. We see Taya coming in, getting the damage on the Helseth just in time. To prevent that, we have Onath coming in now, going to try to support at the bottom buff here. We do have a top buff still. Like, all buffs are currently on the field right now. Like, this could be a huge thing.
Yep.
Like, this could sway everything. We see Tage going for that top buff now. He's channeling it right now as we speak. No one there interrupting him, it doesn't look like. Actually, the Ranger Pet coming in didn't actually get the interrupt on him. Didn't do enough to break the Aegis there.
And now we will see TCG having that double channel buff. They have a 4 cap now. That's easily going to allow them to take the lead and rocket ahead here unless we see those points decap. There was an attempt from the red team Guardian to go for the decap over on the red team home node there, but there's already some more support coming in from the blue team. You've got Tage as well as Sizer there to support that. They should be able to hold that node. And down here at the bottom, they still got plenty of players holding decaps down here too, but there was, I would say, a slight overcommitment to this bottom point, as it has left their own home node there open, and Levin is once again going to sneak in there and steal the decap. But things may all be worth it, as they are slowly, very, very slowly starting to make progress down here on the bottom buff. It was a very well-timed res, as we saw Taya going down there just a few moments ago, that Onath was able to get off there with the Nature Spirit. Thankfully, the Nature Spirit actually, I think, died with that too, so it was a bit lucky, not only skilled. But Taya once again now falling down for a second time. This may be his last chance, however, as we do see there's going to be quite a large amount of bursts coming in here from the members of TCG, and they may just have enough to cause the execution onto him, and they shall. Back on middle there too, there was another decap. It was in control of Maiden Meta, but Tage scoring that decap there too will keep things in the contention for a long amount of time until we see some reinforcements coming in, which they are coming from both sides. And as well, once again, the Thieves are going up against each other, and if things go as planned, Levin should be able to hold on to this, but obviously Thief duels can really go either way, so we shall have to check this one out and see what's going on with this one, Grouch.
You know, it's a close matchup. I think Sizer's got the early advantage right now. Levin's being forced to use the early Shadow Refuge here. Sizer currently on point, getting that cap up. Levin going to try to come and get a little bit of burst damage onto him right now. Actually, not quite able to connect it there. Levin getting punished for it. Sizer going back onto him right now. I think Levin's going to take it out. Interrupted the heal, actually. Sizer's going to win that 1v1.
Very well done. Sizer will take control of that point, and this will once again secure a 2 cap for the guys on TCG, as they've also gotten sovereign control of that middle point. Azani's going to attempt to come over here towards the, towards the altar point to stop this cap. He may just get there in time, and ooh, he is, but this is the issue for Azani, is that he's really not built to fight directly on a node, especially when there's a thief in play. He needs to be able to try and outmaneuver and kite him there, and unless he gets a serious amount of this point decap, that may end up being trouble from. However, he did just get that very nice shatter off on his sides, which now is going to force him to fall back, and that could be some excellent progress made now for Azani. He may be able to bring himself back in. However, we are missing a key factor here, Grouch, and that is the fact that we're at the 490 point mark, and I think, again, things are a little bit too far gone, and this should be an easy game now for TCG, regardless of the outcome of this 1v1, as I believe they will be winning this first game.
Yeah, so I mean, coming into this game here, like MiM have an awesome opening, right? Like they got that, they got the early kill on the Tage, which is like it's like seeing Sasquatch. Like it doesn't happen, right? Yeah. It was such a great play there, able to take Tage out of the game so quickly, really kind of propelled them into an early, you know, it was an early lead, right? But they kind of established themselves like, look, we're here to do business, and we're going for this, and like they just did so well this game. But I can't place my finger on exactly what they did that that really just kind of put them behind here. I think they just had, like, kind of towards the mid game, maybe a little bit towards the late end, they just had a hard time kind of winning these side point fights, like these skirmishes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And as you said earlier, the opener, I think, I don't know what happened with that opener there too, because pretty much as you said, that was a very rare thing to see. Normally TCG is notorious for their opening team fight, and it's that they always end up winning their opening fights there. But for some reason, things did not end up going into their favor. Tage, for whatever reason, got bursted down there at the opening start of that match, but there was no capitalization on that from the guys on MiM. It was either that or TCG did something very good and was able to keep them for their fight going, and that team fight just completely flipped itself in a 360 there around. There was a bit of an iffy moment there where TCG I think had some issues with spreading themselves out too much, and just generally had the wrong people at the wrong points, and that were for a few moments there allowed MiM to take an advantage. But I think the key factor there was at the start, MiM kind of gave up their opener, which I personally think could have translated itself into a 3-cap if utilized properly, but for whatever happened there at middle, they just gave up the lead they got by that early kill on Tage. They could have immediately channeled that into another lockdown into one of the squishier members, such as, I would say, Hellstuff would probably have been a good target to follow it up with, but for whatever reason, they just did not get that stuff off, and things turned sour very quickly indeed for the guys on MiM.
Yeah, and there was a lot of great plays by, like, Sizer obviously doing a really good job getting decaps on far points, just making sure that he's, constantly making sure where people are and kind of capitalizing on decaps when he can. He also had some really good 1v1s that he won, which was obviously crucial. And again, shout out to Tage for capping top buff when he had the Ranger Pit on him. Like, really great use of Aegis, popping Aegis at the right time, making sure you could actually cap that top buff.
Yeah. Indeed. So once again, guys, we are going to head over to our second map here in just a few moments. We're just waiting for the teams to ready up. It's once again, for anybody who has forgotten, going to be on the Forest of Niflhel. So, I mean, based on how we saw things go in Game 1, Grouch, what's your prediction here for Game 2?
Ooh, I mean, so, like, compared to, like, the last game that we watched with PBJT, right, there was a lot of really big focus on the buffs, right? Those buffs really didn't come into play last game. Like, they did a little bit, but, like, teams didn't really capitalize on them like the previous games that we've seen today. So I really think that it really just comes down to the skirmishing on these teams, and like they know they can do this. Like MiM knows they can beat TCG on side points. They know they can beat them in mid fights. So if they just really just nail down, actually think about what they need to be doing, focus on the targets, and actually take them out, I think they can actually win this game against TCG. Like they did really, really well last game.
All right. I personally think we'll see a 2-0 from TCG. We saw some, and wow, as you said too.
Wow, hype killer.
Well, I mean, so there is. It's not like 100% TCG wins 2-0. It's more like I would say it's more like 75-25, I would say, because there is definitely that opportunity for Made in Meta to win this one. It's just that it really comes down to the individual player skill, which is always such a very hard factor to predict here. But I mean, TCG has performed countless times in the past. They've been together for a much longer amount of time. They have had more time to synergize themselves together. This new MiM roster, they've only been together for, I believe, a month or so now, so they haven't really had as much time to perfect their strategies. So it really just comes down to how well these teams perform, and I think longevity and the time that TCG has had to perfect their strategies will come out in the end. But of course, I could be wrong on that. We will have to see, as TCG could slip up here and end up putting themselves behind and throwing us into a Game 3. So we'll have to see. But of course, the game has already begun, Grouch. So what's happened here so far?
So, like, one thing I've noticed on EU that's interesting compared to NA is a lot of players like to push in through mid, but they actually go backside keep, right? Like, not actually behind it, but they go to the staircase for the enemy team and actually try to grab someone on that staircase and try to engage them away from the point. That forces their guardian off that point to try to defend, and it gives their team the advantage of being on that point at the right time. So we saw coming out of the gate, TCG actually tried to use that onto Onath, and they've just been putting continual pressure on. We're actually going to see him go down on the midpoint here right now. And MiM Sam going in for that res right now, actually to get him up in time. But really, just out of the gate here, we already see MIM kind of struggling just to keep themselves into the fight, keeping their health up, and TCG is just doing a great job.
Yeah, we saw there two very good coordinated bursts that came out there from the members of TCG onto that Nature Spirit. The second Onath brought that out. There was a call out from TCG to kill that thing, and they got rid of that fast, wasting a very large cord on the sign of Onath. However, as we take a look, kind of slightly off node here too, MIM has made a slight amount of progress, which they could actually transfer over here onto the middle node, as they just took out Sizer there too. This is going to prompt a reinforcement from Denchi, who recently went back over towards that home node to check for any cross caps, but that's not going to be happening at all. In fact, we've got a full 5-man rush here from Made in Meta as they all attempt to dive over here towards the middle point. That's going to be a very big fight, of course, and that could really go either way, as we did not really see any large team fights in that previous game. It was fairly split up for the entire game, so we've yet to see a full 5-on-5, and even less so, who will actually come out on top of it.
All right, so Helseth trying to disengage here. We see Azani coming in. Sizer going on to Azani. Here we got Rom helping out as well. Helseth's super low. You know, one thing I saw was interesting. I was on Respawn. Sizer actually didn't go for far point. Like, they had 5 players from MIM on mid, only 3 players from TCG, and as we saw finally some players kind of rotating in, like, I was really surprised Sizer just didn't go across the map and take out mine.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit surprised by that too, because that's been a mainstay in their strategy. Usually Sizer's very proactive in far point pushing. That's always been his thing, is he's always gone for those far points. He hasn't really been a team fighter for most of the time, but it seems as though, I'm not sure if this is part of them switching over Rom to the Ranger and they're just trying to have a more balanced team fight now, because they have a mainly Kandi-based player that's replaced Rom here, whereas Rom is normally a power-based player, so they would kind of be interchangeable. But it is interesting, to say the least. You're seeing them not pushing far, and if they don't win these team fights, it's obviously going to put them pretty far behind. There is, of course, still the option for Sizer to push over towards far if things go sour, but yeah.
This mid-fight is just going crazy right now, Blue. So Levin actually got taken down. Onath winning for the res there. The Moa came out from Helseth onto Onath. Onath actually able to finish the res on Levin through Moa form, because it doesn't actually interrupt your actions here. But right now, TCG is just so dominant on this point here. Helseth is in downstate. They really need to get a cleave out onto the body. Tajin, Denchi going in for that res. He's actually going to teleport out of it. If they can get some more cleave onto that body, he might actually be able to take Helseth out. It's so close, actually getting the res off onto him finally. Like, this fight has been...
It's neck and neck. It's neck and neck. Sizer, however, I think listened to the stream and is now taking our word, as we did see him. He went over for that decap onto mine. Unfortunately, however, we did have Levin recently recapturing that, and Levin is going to be a little bit more aggressive here too, as he will also head over towards the Henge and attempt to take that and take slight advantage of TCG's, I would say, a little bit overcommitment to this middle point, but it is an overcommitment that is allowing them to win the fight. And once again here too, now that they know they have an advantage, Sizer is also on his way over towards that far node. I think we saw Taya kind of had an idea this was coming though, and thankfully with him still being within close proximity to that node, he's going to be able to get on it in time in order to stop that decap and ensure that his team, regardless of TCG's victory over here at mid, holds on to their 2-cap.
All right, so such a crazy skirmish going on in mid this entire game, right? Well, if you actually look at the map right now, there's a 2-cap right now for MIM, right? They've got both side points, just now finally losing that Henge point. So even though they put so much resources in that mid fight and fought TCG there, they're actually controlling the map.
Yeah. But I think that's going to change scope here very quickly, as there was, I would say they kind of had the wrong person. I think there wasn't much that could have helped that, granted, considering how heavily they were invested into that team fight. But unfortunately, due to those circumstances, they did have the wrong person over here on the Henge node. That was going to be the Thief. And even more unfortunate is the fact that they have chosen to have Denchi as their mainstay home node player, which, considering that Thieves are often the players that rush far, that's a very good choice to have. As Denchi, he's very good against those Thieves, very good at just general 1v1ing him there, and that allowed Denchi to decap to this point before the MIM reinforcements even got there, just because that Thief really cannot fight directly on node versus Denchi. It's a very unfavored matchup against the Thief, and that was in general was just a good thing in the grand scheme there for TCG, that's allowing them to very quickly turn the game back into their favor.
All right, over here on Hen's side, we do see Azani actually getting taken out. He went up on the ledge there trying to take Helseth out. Really risky move there. He had really low HP. Thought he might be able to take Helseth out almost immediately there. Levin coming on to Helseth now. Might be able to actually take Helseth down. It's going to be close. He's kind of stuck in that little corner there. Levin actually getting taken out by, or getting pressure from Sizer rather.
That's another one of the redeeming things about TCG too, that kind of comes underscored. We don't talk about it too much in cast. Is just how well that they often end up supporting each other in team fights. There's always good callouts from these guys. I've talked with Helseth at length in the past about how good Tage is with Kandi cleanses, how well these guys communicate with each other, and just like how much size I've actually been told this quote unquote from Helseth is that Sizer carries us very hard sometimes, and the fact that Sizer is the one that can make or break a lot of their games, and we're seeing an example of that now. You were saying again, he's done a fantastic job of putting pressure in the correct places, and that's often the misunderstood thing about a Sword Dagger Thief there too, is the fact that the Sword Dagger Thief's job is not necessarily to go in and do the damage. He's more to just cause disruptions. He's in there to just in general be annoying. He's in there to poke players and keep them out of the main team fight, keep them from doing damage, and keep them from bothering the other players on that Thief's team there. And Sizer's been doing just exactly that, and that's allowed them to come out on top here in a lot of these team fights. Unfortunately, however, there is quite a bit of bulk to work through, so it is taking TCG some time to take back this Henge node, but in the grand scheme of things, I do believe that for the the time being, at least, TCG does have the up and up on this mid fight. However, MiM has realized how long they are able to hold on back over here, though, and they have started pushing in for other nodes, which could lead to them taking an advantage as well if they are able to successfully make those pushes.
All right, over here on Hen's side, we do see only one cap currently going out for MiM and nothing for TCG right now. We did see a Moa coming out onto MiM Sam from Helseth coming in from Stealth. Sam actually able to avoid most of the damage there, able to keep himself alive here. So actually on this point, Helseth going down, and I think TCG is actually in a pretty rough spot right now.
Indeed they are, with Helseth getting knocked out. If he does not get back up, Sizer's actually going to take a bit of a risk here and go for a full res onto him, but I don't think they really know his body's location there. Denchi also porting over.
They don't see it. Denchi goes down too, though. Sizer getting so low. This could be a crucial moment in this game right now. If they can just capitalize on taking Sizer out as well. Denchi and Helseth both down.
Helseth's gonna get bursted out there. We did end up seeing Denchi get knocked out too, so I think that's it. MiM's wiped up the shop, and now they have control of their opponent's home node, but they still gotta hold it. Tage is a bit misplaced here too. Oh, this could be a bad news for Tage, as he's directly in the middle of all the bursts from the red team. Their Thief is already on his way towards middle to decap that. Thankfully, Rom is close to that, so he can stop any attempt at a decap, but basically the steam train that is made in meta is on its way, and Rom, unfortunately, I don't believe is gonna be able to survive it, especially if we see Tage knocked out before he gets there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tage is in a pretty good spot right now, but the thing is like Tage is blowing cooldowns, getting hit by damage, and by the time he actually gets to the place where he needs to be, he's going to be so low, or maybe his cooldowns will actually be used already, that he's just going to be at a disadvantage. I mean, if you look at the map right now,
oh my goodness, this backdoor is brilliant. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, look at the caps right now. Like, we have 2 caps going out for MiM right now. TCG only has 1 point. They're kind of fighting in roads. Like, I feel like the strategy isn't cohesive right now. They don't really know what they're doing, and they don't really know what they should be doing. They don't know where to go.
They are going to attempt this backdoor, however, and if there was this is actually, I still have to say, this is good for MiM, because even with this brilliant backdoor, and that was really good from TCG, but I mean, it ended up not working so well, because you've got MiM is just winning through good man placement here. They pulled the same exact thing that Denchi did just a few minutes ago there, when we saw Meta try to push over onto this node. They had their Ellie camping this node, and unfortunately those bursty players could not push onto him quickly enough, and there was absolutely brilliant reaction time there from Meta and getting back over to this point. They very quickly shifted from that mine fight immediately back over here to this hen fight. It was definitely a confusing time for them. They were bouncing all over the place between these nodes, but they were able to get back here in time, and they just may be able to hold on to this team fight. We will have to see, however, because TCG is now applying a large amount of pressure, and they have started to make very good progress on knocking out MiM members on this node.
Let's take a look at Levin really quick here. So Levin, I think he was fighting Sizer here in Rhodes. Where did he go? So Sizer actually baited Levin off of the point. Sizer's already back over in the team fight here, so he's kind of wasting some of Levin's time. Sam actually getting taken out on the node here as well. Tage trying to come in for that res, gonna get it off. No, not quite in time. Tage coming in with that clutch stomp there. Helseth very low right now though, getting a heal off, but he's hurting.
Indeed, as we see Taya going down here too, it looks like Rom and the rest of the members of TCG should have pretty decent control. There is still Onaith to worry about here. Onaith also has the Nature Spirit. They might need to interrupt that, but thankfully it will not be necessary. And now the last target at this point is going to be Onaith, and they can finally get their home node back. Meanwhile, the red team is scrambled all over this map at the moment as they try to regain some ground here somewhere, but unfortunately with their reduced numbers, that may be a very hard task to accomplish. Sam, I think Sam, whoop, he actually turns his path. I thought Sam was just going to YOLO over there to try and stop the cap for a second, but it seems as though...
Look at Azani. Azani going for the Svanir kill. Really no one in place right now to be able to contest that. We do see Denchi maybe moving off, but there's no Sizer around. We see Helseth going in for the... Sizer and Helseth going for Chieftain on the other side as well. Should be able to get that one for a free kill. We see Denchi coming in now for that boss possibly. Azani actually getting taken out by Svanir.
Oh no!
Azani, what are you doing, buddy?
Denchi, I think, is just going to go for the safe kill.
Close.
But no, we do see Denchi snags the kill on that boss there. He's now they got full 50 points from that. And with this 2 cap...
I cannot believe that.
Yeah, they had their Thief there too, so they should have been able to get that one, but for some reason their Thief, he blanked on that one, and Denchi was able to get a lucky take on that boss, so he's got that one. Not only that, but remember too that they also got the other buff, so they now have a 100-point stat boost across the board, as well as just getting those 50 points, which is pretty much guaranteed their comeback, and they're not going to take the lead. Huge mistake there by MiM, which, to be completely honest, if this next team fight here at mid doesn't end up going into the favor of MiM, that's going to cost them the game.
I can't believe that. I cannot believe that Azani got taken out by Svanir. I know he's fought Svanir hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, and this is the most crucial time for him to do it, to execute it perfectly, to get his team in that secured position. He just was not able to pull it off.
So again, guys, with Azani's a very large mistake there, possibly costing his team the game, to be completely honest. As we take a look back in middle, there is MIM, a very spread out MIM right now, a very confused MIM as they try to find somewhere to push in, but TCG has hunkered down. They are ready at all nodes to fight at the moment. They've got Rom pushing over towards their home node. Denchi will be joining Rom in just a moment too. Azani is on the point trying to 1v1, but with Denchi here, there's enough support to keep them going. You've also got Sizer coming in, already fighting a very low health Onaith. Sam is also going to commit to this point here, but I think again with TCG and Helseth also coming back over in middle, we will see a decap gained by MIM, and actually no, it's not, because there's going to be a very good portal swap coming out there between Helseth and Denchi. Denchi will put himself back over here on mid, slightly reducing the amount of support available for members on TCG in mid, but they have Tage there, and that's really all they should need. So assuming nothing goes wrong here, and assuming TCG is able to hold on to these caps, they should be able to take game 2 and take a 2-0 victory here in this set. But they will lose this decap at Henge, however. It really now comes down to middle. Denchi needs to hold on to this cap, and then they should be good.
Yeah, Denchi, I think Denchi's going to have this here. It's just, DD versus DD. There's really no reason for Denchi to leave that point there. So I think this is actually going to be game 2 going in favor of TCG. You called it right. I think MIM gave them a great run for their money here, but not quite able to pull it off there. I think there's some misplays around the bosses. It happens to everyone. These are high-tension matches. Just great play by MIM, though. We're looking forward to seeing how they fare.